UFC Vegas 87 has come to a close, and boy, were there some upsets, or a lot of stuff that honestly, didn't really expect to be happen, that being mostly Javid Basharat, but there was a lot of surprising things on the card. It was a pretty good card in my opinion, but I'm going to be here talking about just about every single fight. There were some fights on the here, like the Vitor Petrino fight, where there's not really too much of a takeaway, to be honest, so I'm going to skip those ones. If you're interested in hearing my take on any particular fight, timestamps will be there in the description, pinned comment, chapter bar down below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels. Let's get started with Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. Now, this was an absolutely phenomenal performance. If you've watched my full card breakdown videos, I was a little bit skittish on how I felt about Christian Leroy Duncan, because I thought sometimes he could get a little bit too confident, doing the Michael Venom Page thing, but of course not nearly that bad. But man, these past two performances, and I know that the level of competition could be better, and I know he was kind of really outsizing Claudio Ribeiro, but man, I love his striking. It's phenomenal. He goes in there, he's all business, he never throws the same shot twice. I absolutely love this performance. And now, here's the thing. I was thinking throughout this fight, because of course Claudio was doing this the entire time, right? Or at least for the first little bit of the fight, he was just sitting there not throwing back. Is that because he was worried about getting knocked out again? Or does Christian Leroy Duncan actually hit that hard? I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to wait to see into future performances. But he also showed a really good wrestling game and ruthless ground and pound behind it. So Christian Leroy Duncan, in his post-fight interview as well, has been saying he's fighting MMA now. He needs to really work on everything surrounding MMA. I'm very high on this guy now. I am very high, and I will strongly consider betting on him. And of course, unless he fights a strong wrestler or something, because there's some questions there. But man, I was incredibly impressed. But speaking of being impressed, we had the complete opposite when it came to Aiemann Zahabi versus Javid Basharat. I did have a parlay break here, which is very, very saddening. I thought Javid Basharat was going to be... Was he lock? I don't really recall off the top of my head. I think he was the fighter on the card that I thought was going to win most out of everybody. Now, Aiemann Zahabi, I was a little bit worried because he was on a 3-fight win streak, and perhaps everybody is just completely underrating him, because he came in, he had a pretty good game plan. He was throwing more than Javid Basharat. He did a great job stuffing the takedowns, but at the end of the day, Javid Basharat for the first time actually looked like that he was suffering in the octagon, and I'm still pretty high on Javid Basharat, but I don't think he's nearly going to be... I didn't think he was untouchable. I didn't think he was top 15 material yet, but I thought that he was just outside of that top 15 range. He was going to beat everybody who wasn't ranked. That's how I was thinking about Javid Basharat, and of course now that's proven to be false, but Aiemann Zahabi shows again, now he's on a 4-fight win streak, that he can hang, man. Could you imagine if this dude goes on a run? I think he's getting better, to be honest with you, but a little bit disappointing performance in Javid Basharat. He was looking good in the first round and just kind of suffered in the second and third. But now, man, somebody we need to pay attention to is Vinicius Oliveira. He took on Benardo Sopaj, and man, this dude, of course, it was a dogfight for the first little while, but then it's incredible to me how hard this dude can throw. He puts everything into his shots for the entirety of the fight, and he finally started to slow down in the third round, but still, he was throwing ridiculously hard in the third round as well. This dude comes for the finish. This dude will forever be an exciting fighter. I am totally convinced, and he ended it with one of the, this is contender for knockout of the year, definitely so far knockout of the year. Man, this is somebody to look out for. But speaking of guys to look out for, we have Steve Erceg taking on Matt Schnell. Steve Erceg with another phenomenal performance. I know he's had a couple close fights here and there, but man, this dude is just such a complete fighter. I know Matt Schnell, you could get better with the level of competition you're facing, but man, you could just tell, man. It doesn't matter. There could have been anybody in there, and Steve Erceg still belongs. I'm not convinced that he's going to be a champion. He, of course, has all the potential to be champion, but I'm just not convinced that he's going to go that far, but I'm convinced that this dude belongs at the top of the division. This dude can hang with the guys like Brandon Moreno. If Davison Figueiredo was up there, he could hang with Figueiredo. This dude can hang with Pantoja. I'm not sure if he'd beat those guys. He called out Brandon Moreno, and if Brandon Moreno fights anything like his last performance, then Steve Erceg has a pretty good chance, but I want to see him at the top of the division now. That's enough. Give him a big shot up. I'm ready to see Steve Erceg. He's fresh blood in the flyweight division. Now we move on to Umar Nurmagomedov, and he fought Bekzat Almakhan. I was very excited to see Bekzat Almakhan fight, because how many times do you see guys fight Umar Nurmagomedov? He takes you down, tries to hold you down, tries to ground and pound you. And don't get me wrong, he did a lot of that, but Bekzat threw him off and got up multiple times. How many fighters can do that? Not a lot. Not a lot at all. And he took this fight on relatively short notice as well. He had a great performance. By that I mean he had a great UFC debut, showed that he belonged, One thing's for sure, he definitely belongs with Not necessarily the top, but I'd say give him somebody just outside the rankings. I think he's ready for it. I really, really do. And he almost, could you imagine? He almost knocked out Umar Nurmagomedov, caught him right on the temple. Could you imagine that upset? That would have been wild. And now we have Nurmagomedov versus Alex Perez. This was another little bit of a frustrating performance from Nurmagomedov because this dude walks around talking like he's going to be champion, and then he has performances like that. It was a lackluster performance. Yeah, he won the fight, but he does the Aljamain Sterling thing where it's just all of a sudden, hey, we're fighting. Oh, Mokayev's on the ground. He didn't get knocked down. He didn't get taken down. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, man. Taking advantage of a ridiculous rule, in my opinion, but he got the job done. He didn't look good. He was fading in there. And then, of course, in the post-fight interview, he said he was sick. I personally don't believe he was sick. We've seen this too many times from him where it's just he randomly pulls out the win. This dude does not belong at the top of the division. If he fought Steve Erceg, I would pick Steve Erceg, but that'd actually be a pretty good matchup, to be honest with you. I would like to see that. And that brings us to the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Wow, Shamil Gaziev. That's perhaps the biggest fraud check we have seen in recent history. I know there's guys coming up in the UFC looking really good, and then they end up getting fraud checked, right? But this was a crazy fraud check. Shamil Gaziev gave up after round 1. He gave up. Sitting there with his mouth guard out of his mouth. I don't know if it was to breathe, or it must have been to breathe, or if he was just like waiting for it to get knocked out so he could have an extra breather. I don't know. He didn't move his head. He barely threw any shots. He refused to check any leg kicks. I don't know why Rozenstruik didn't check any or throw any more leg kicks. I doubt he would have had the energy to catch him and take him down, but man, it's just jab to the face, jab to the face, jab to the face until he quit in the 5th round. That's crazy to me. That is, oh my God. I was so wrong about this guy. I thought he was going to win this fight. I thought he had promise coming into it because of he had some dominant performances. Yeah, you know what? You could have assumed that the dude was going to gas out, but I thought he was going to be able to finish Rozenstruik. That's crazy to me, dude. That is absolutely crazy. Thank God I didn't bet on this fight. Thank God. Because the reason I actually didn't bet on this fight is because I thought Rozenstruik was live for a knockout. He didn't even get that. But then again, I guess it would have been stopped. Like, would that have counted? It must have, right? TKO doctor stoppage, I'm guessing. Or did I don't know if the corner actually threw it in. I don't know what the official ruling was for that. Regardless, man. Wow. Absolutely pathetic. Do you want to see something that's not pathetic, though? Check out this UFC 299 breakdown right here. Check it out, guys. I will see you either there or in the next video, guys. Take care.